Hello, and welcome to the podcast. I am so excited that you're here. Now, today's episode is a slightly different format. Basically, I was having a bit of a hard time talking about myself and all of the things. So I thought I'd ask my wonderful friend Tanya Rose to come on and interview me in a reverse interview style for the podcast, which she so graciously agreed to help me elicit salient details that I feel I kept missing out in true reflector style if you're familiar with human design. Now, this episode was recorded via Zoom call, so I do hope the sound isn't too choppy, but I have tried to make it as clear as possible. So just a little something to keep in mind as you're listening if the sound isn't super clear. Now, there are a couple of gaps I wanted to fill in. One was with regard to the Instagram page. I wanted to, and I still do want the page to feel like sunshine. And my intention is pretty much the same for this podcast as well, which is for you to be hit with a ray of joy and expansion and inspiration anytime you tune in. And I was also so taken aback with all of the wonderful things that Tanya said about me that I was lost for words, very clearly. And I say that I've done Reiki Master, but what I meant was I'm Reiki attuned, but up to the master level. So just keeping those little things in mind. And now, while I feel that I could have said so much more, I realized that I can't fit in a lifetime of everything that I want to say in one episode. Hence the podcast. So there's definitely so much juiciness in store for you in future episodes. But for now, let's just jump right in. Enjoy! Hello and welcome.
Hey,
Thank you for doing this.
of course. I'm excited.
So everybody, this is my friend, my wonderful friend, Tanya Rose, and she's going to do something we call a reverse interview. So instead of me interviewing her, she's being generous enough to come on and interview me about my journey, about where, how I've gotten here, and what I'm doing and all of the other fun stuff.
Yay, exciting.
Yeah. Do you want to just start us off with introducing yourself a little bit?
Yes, sure. So I am Tanya Rose, or Tanya Rose Coach, as a lot of people like to call me. And I essentially just want to make everybody live their happiest versions. I want everybody to die with as little regrets as possible, which is why I have founded a company called Live Your Best Happy. And it's all about inspiring people to live main character energy style, done through things like coaching, workshops, merchandise, retreats, whatever I might be up to whenever you find this episode. It's still just to get you to your happy place.
I love that so much. Thank you. I really do.
Thank you, Musa.
I had goosebumps.
Thank you. But this is about you, not about me. So I think let's flip the script and let's start with, instead of starting talking about you, I actually want to talk about optimistic agenda first.
Yeah.
I want to know, like, what is it? What is the plan with it? And why did you start it?
So this was something that I wanted to do for such a long time. And I feel like that's become a theme that I'm trying to change now. Well, not trying to, sorry. I am changing. And it started off, one of my lowest points where I was feeling so inspired by quotes and I wanted to share something, and all of the knowledge and the wisdom that I was gaining at the time, all of the just sharing basically whatever, I was kind of picking up, learning, and whatever was helping me at the time, and I just kind of just to document it. And obviously I got in my head, but I did start the page. So it kind of like I started it and then I stopped, and, it just, how it goes. We get in our heads and it spirals from there.
Yep.
Aware. And it kind of just evolved from there as I evolved as well. So then I had my grand spiritual awakening, as I like to call it. And 2020 happened. And that's where I deep dove right into my healing journey, because everything was just coming at me. It was like I was suddenly awake. I was suddenly very aware of these things. and everything was just coming at me of, try, I don't know, just uncovering limiting beliefs and dealing with them and just facing your fears and all sorts of things. Um, and as such, during that time, I kind of just received the message of changing, and how do I call it? Using the optimistic agenda as a platform for inspiring others, which was kind of same as what it was before, but slightly different, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
yeah, so in some kind of a nutshell, that's kind of what it is and where it came from. So the intention has been the same all along. I think it's just evolved slightly, where it's now more of a platform for me to inspire others and show them what's possible for them, and share and document also bits and pieces of my journey as I go along on them, and take others along with the ride for me, along
Amazing.
for
I
the
like
ride
that.
with me. Totally botched that.
It's okay. No, nobody's perfect at English, even though it might look that way. And that's, one thing that I like about what you're doing, because obviously I've known you for a couple of years now, and I've really seen how moving away from perfectionism and actually just taking action, massive imperfect action. Like instead of re-recording this episode or re-recording that bit, you're just going to be like, look guys, I botched it, and maybe you weren't going to do that and I've just made you do it, but either way,
No
I
pressure.
like the massive I like the massive imperfect action. Okay, cool. So you've had that page and you've obviously got that vision with that page, which is great. But I want to know, why have you decided to start a podcast now? And what is the difference between the podcast and the page?
I have goosebumps. Podcast, because oh my gosh, I love talking. You know this. I guess the listeners, depending on which episode and when they're tuning into this, will, and at what point of my journey, they're probably going to get to learn this soon. I love talking. I can keep talking. I can go on and on and on about things that I love. So this was just a very natural transition of where I felt I was kind of like stopping myself when it comes to Instagram, with especially with the way it's evolved into, whatever it's evolved into. And this is just a way of for me to just literally just pick up a microphone or, something, and just talk as if I'm having a chat with you, and just having people listen in and sharing my thoughts and sharing my journey and sharing my lessons and sharing my whatever it is, and in due course also bringing people on to share about themselves. And yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at with it at the moment. Obviously, it could evolve, it could completely change and shift with time, but that's kind of where I'm at the moment, where it just felt like a very natural transition of just speaking like I'm speaking to a friend and having a conversation and sharing whatever's on my mind, because I process better when I'm talking rather than trying to, I don't know, put up a pretty little Instagram post and limit my caption to 2,200 characters or whatever it is at the moment.
Of course, you would know what the limit is. I didn't even know there was a limit on what in terms of how many characters there are. I love it. So
So much
detailed.
usage.
So what I want to ask now is, what kind of topics can people expect to hear from this podcast? Yeah.
So yes, I'll be covering a bunch of topics. There'll be manifestation, there will be human design, energy and energetics, and just the principles around how you can make quantum physics work for you. And we'll be talking about the quantum physics principles as well. And have I missed anything? Wealth and money, because I love it. Just changing my
Oh,
money mindset and
yeah.
everything has been so helpful. So all of that and then so much more, honestly. It's just going to be a lot around whatever I've learned, and continue to learn, and as I evolve and grow in this journey.
Love, love, love that. And I'm sure all the audience are going to be excited to hear it from your perspective. So what I want to ask you now, in terms of the name Optimistic Agenda, why Optimistic Agenda?
That's a really good question. I was looking for a name when I was starting up the page, and I was like, I want something that resonates with, this mission and this vision that I have for the page, which obviously wasn't. It's become so much more than I ever anticipated it could be, and I'm sure I'm just getting started. But I wanted to infuse it with that joy and that happiness of just having the like looking at things with a more optimistic viewpoint, like a more empowering perspective of I can do this and it's okay that I'm here and I'm still capable of more. Because I think we're
Wow.
so much more powerful than we were ever made to believe. And I believe that to my core. And I want people to believe that for themselves too, that they're capable of so much more. And it's their optimistic agenda. It is whatever they want it to be. It's not mine, it's not yours. It is whatever they want it to be. So if it's your optimistic agenda, it would be very different. Actually, we've determined this. Your optimistic agenda is very different from my optimistic agenda. And they're both
Yep.
valid. They're both valid. So does that answer your question? I think, sometimes I'm at a loss
Yeah, of course it
to
does.
describe these things.
Of course it does. I know you process out loud as well, which is a good thing because then obviously people who listen to you or watch you can learn from you in terms of one way of processing things, in terms of how you get to that, in terms of answering the question, why this, why that. So yeah, you've definitely answered that. And I love the fact that you're saying it's different optimistic agendas for everybody because essentially we're all puzzle pieces, right? It's one big ass puzzle and we're all pieces that need to be put together.
Yeah, indeed. And we all work together. And I think I was mentioning this before we got on to the recording is we have five fingers on our hand and they're all different. Not one is the same. And we need all of them for the whole to work. And I find it so beautiful that everyone's different. I'll be talking to five different people and everyone is so different. Everything, whatever each one wants and their definition of optimism or life or abundance is so different and it's right for them. And it's so fascinating.
It totally is so fascinating and just so different. One of the things that I'm learning recently is when we understand versatility, when we understand how everybody's different and accept that it's okay for everybody to be different. Like you say, we spoke about this before we jumped on this call. Accept that, oh, okay, so you want to pick an apple off a tree because that makes you feel expansive. You want to use the word juicy because that makes you feel expansive. It's still the same feeling. And it's what we then do with that feeling and that energy of expansiveness, right? Like, where are we taking it forward?
Exactly. And it's going to be so different from one person to the other. For someone, it's like the way you say it, it's the action that feels so expansive. For another person who's probably very juiced up by just using words. I know I fall into the latter. And for a third person, it could be something completely different.
Like me, like we said, I like to pick apples off a tree,
Off
and
a
it makes me
tree.
feel the same way you feel when you use big words.
Yeah.
We're living examples. Okay, so
I
here's
love
another
it.
question for you. In terms of, all the content that you will be pushing through the podcast, or you'll be sharing all the education you'll be giving and just all the nuggets that you'll be sharing. In an ideal world, like what's your vision for the listener? What's next for them after listening to one of your episodes?
Wow. That is such a good question. I know I've said that like so many times, but truly is. And this is why I called you on. Thank you for coming. Um,
Of course.
My ultimate for the listener is honestly to just feel empowered and to know that their version is the right version for them, not for anyone else, but for them. And anytime they come on and listen and, they've finished listening to an episode or whatever, my intention for them is to walk away feeling so inspired and so ready to take on life on their own terms and realize again that they're so much more powerful than they were ever made to think, that there's so much potential just sitting and waiting for them to act on. And depending on what kind of episode it is, actually, it might be like pretty much all of them, is to be able to see a part of them, a part of themselves in, whatever it is that I'm sharing, and walk away feeling like either that it's okay, that it's normal for them to be feeling whatever they're feeling, or thinking that they have the power to change that, and that they can do whatever it is that they want. I feel like I've repeated myself. There's something
Wow.
but yeah, that's pretty much in a nutshell. That's my overview of what my intention is also, because there's a lot of things that sometimes just come through and flow through, which would be for the listener, intended for the listener, when they're listening, and just take away the message that they need at the time that they listen to the episodes.
Wow, I like that. I really like that. Okay, so before we sort of wrap it up, I want to ask, how do you plan on supporting people outside of the podcast and the page? And I know this is forever evolving and could change, but right now, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm active on Instagram at the moment, so you can come and find me on at the Optimistic Agenda. And that's just where all the updates and everything are going to be taking place. And you obviously have this podcast. So that's where you can connect with me. And yeah.
I did also want to add that, Mosem, you have fun little challenges that come up as well throughout the year. For example, last year, which, she hasn't mentioned, and I'm sure it will come in one of her future podcasts, she did a self-love challenge. You'll hear all about that and what all the results were from that. But just what I like about you, Mosem, is that you're trying to make things different, but you're also incorporating fun into what you do. You're trying to figure out, okay, how can people have fun while they do the inner work? How can they design their ideal life? Like you did your vision board workshop. I think you had two of those. I think maybe you had a couple. I know you had more than one. And so, as far as I understand it, folks, there is a lot to come. Most thinks she's not great with words, but it's because she tries to use big words, and I'm like, just use simple words. So in my words, it is workshops, it is group coaching, potentially programs, one-on-one coaching, workbooks covering all these topics that she mentions, like human design, manifestation, energetics. By the way, she's also Reiki qualified, I think it's called
Reiki master.
Reiki master. So there will be some Reiki too, quantum physics. She'll be covering wealth and money. This girl has gone from having, Mosem, I'm airing your business here, but she's gone from having pretty much no savings to now getting to a comfortable savings place. But I think it's really important to realize that we all come from somewhere and we all have to grow. And this is a small thing. Like when I talk about the growth that she has, this is not for me to talk about Mosem, but this episode was really just for you to get a little feeling of what she's like, who she is, and, what direction she's going in. If you're like, oh, human design, what's that? Well, essentially, it is the energetic Myers Briggs, and Mosam is a reflector, which means she's very good at processing and also reflecting what it is you may be thinking or feeling. Basically, there is a lot of fun stuff to come. And I know there will be something for everybody. This girl is even looking into productivity right now. And I know when Mosam learns something, she wants to teach whatever it is she's learning. So buckle up, folks. You're in for a wild ass ride.
Oh my goodness. Thank you. I am just here like in awe. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh.
Of course.
My mouth and
Before
cheeks are just hurting from the smiling from all of that. Thank you. Um, yeah.
No worries. I want to say before we sort of wrap up, are there any last things that you want to say? I know Mosam is never short of words, so let them have it.
Last things is I hope you enjoyed listening to this episode, wherever you are tuning in from, and just got something out of it, even though it was just for fun. And yeah, I think that's pretty much all I can come up with at the moment. But there's so much more to come. I am so excited. Thank you so much for your kind words and for coming on, Tanya. I am really deeply grateful and appreciative of that. There are my big
Of
words.
course. Yeah. You're so welcome. And I look forward to having you on my platforms too.
Yes, and yeah, so if you enjoyed this, please take a screenshot and share it with me, and come and just pop into my DMs. I'm at the Optimistic Agenda, and let me know how you found this. And yeah, just stay tuned and hit the subscribe button on the podcast as well, because there's so much more to come. Thank you so much for doing this again, Tanya. Do you want to just share where people can find you if they're very much more like interested to see what you're about and all of that fun stuff?
Of course, you're very welcome and thank you as well. So like I say, I am Tanya Rose. I am Tanya Rose Coach on Instagram. My brand is at Live Your Best Happy, where there will be fun things like merchandise coming out soon, depending on when you've reached this podcast. And I do have a YouTube channel where I cover productivity, mindset, and manifestation related stuff, as well as self mastery, which is getting to know who you are and building your ideal life based on that. So come and say hey. And if you do message on Instagram right now, I manage all my DMs. So you'll definitely be hearing from me directly.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. I am so grateful to you. I hope you enjoyed this episode and got a little taste of what I'm about and what's to come. Come and join me on Instagram at The Optimistic Agenda for more goodness. Come and say hi, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button to be notified of future episodes. Until next time, mwah.